Welcome to this knowledge clip about mathematical optimization of diets. A sustainable diet is, by definition, nutritionally adequate, economically affordable, culturally acceptable, and environmentally respectful. Such dimensions may not be entirely compatible with each other, which makes designing a sustainable diet a challenge. In this knowledge clip, I will introduce mathematical optimization, a method that allows us to simultaneously combine several metrics to design sustainable diets. I will also show you Optimeal, which is a tool that allows us to carry out diet optimization. What does a healthy and sustainable diet look like? Well, defining healthy and sustainable food patterns is complex because there are multiple aspects that need to be considered. Because it's complex, defining a healthy and sustainable diet should be based on systematic investigation and sound data. What should be taken into account? Aspects that could be taken into account include nutritional aspects like macro and micronutrients, including vitamins and minerals, food-based dietary guidelines like eating at least 250 grams of vegetables per day, environmental aspects like carbon footprint and land use, and willingness of people to adapt their dietary pattern. It's important to consider how likely people are willing to change their diets, as large changes made to the diet may not be widely accepted. There are numerous dietary patterns out there that can be considered healthy and sustainable, including vegetarian, vegan, pescatarian, and Mediterranean dietary patterns. Even eating a diet that follows your national food-based dietary guidelines has been shown to be healthier and more sustainable than most current diets. What is important to highlight is that there is no one-size-fits-all diet. A healthy and sustainable diet can look very different for different populations, depending on age, sex, country, and so forth, because of differing nutritional needs, food preferences, and habits. Therefore, this question, what does a healthy and sustainable diet look like, is very complex, because to adequately answer it, you may need to simultaneously process many different aspects. That's where diet optimization comes in. Diet optimization is a mathematical technique that finds the optimal combination of foods for a subpopulation, population, or individual that fulfills a set of requirements while minimizing or maximizing an objective function. You typically start with a reference diet, which is a habitual or current diet of a certain population, usually determined by a diet and nutrition survey. With this, you have a list of foods that are habitually consumed, and these food products need to be linked with nutrient composition data and to life cycle assessment data. Then you define requirements which guide your optimization. For instance, you may want your new diet to have the same energy content as the current diet, so you would set an upper and lower limit to energy so energy does not change. Or you may want the new diet not to emit a certain amount of greenhouse gases, so you would set a maximum limit for greenhouse gas emissions. Or you want the new diet to have at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, so you would set a minimum limit for servings of fruits and vegetables. Then you define an objective function, which is your main question. For instance, you may want to know the optimal combination of foods that fulfills a set of requirements while staying as close to the current diet as possible. So you would want to minimize the changes made from the existing diet. This function then makes a selection of the optimal combination of foods which answers your question and is in compliance with your requirements. However, sometimes a solution is not feasible. That happens when the requirements are not compatible with the list of foods available. But luckily, you do not need to do any math by hand because there is Optimeal. Optimeal is a software tool developed by Blanc Consultants that provides an easy interface for conducting diet optimizations to grasp the full picture of a healthy and sustainable diet. Optimeal gives insights in complex matters. It evaluates the profile of food products, calculates the nutritional and environmental aspects of a diet, uses optimization to come to an ideal solution, searches for solutions which have as few changes as possible to the current diet, and gives insights into how to make food products and diets future-proof. In other words, healthy and sustainable. So just like I explained earlier, there are several inputs that are needed to conduct diet optimization. Optimeal comes with a default data set for the Netherlands or the EU, but you could also import your own data. For Optimeal, you need a starting diet linked to nutritional and environmental properties. Then you need constraints, which could be nutritional and environmental requirements I mentioned earlier, to set the guidelines for the optimization in terms of health and sustainability. Let me illustrate what is going on behind the scenes. To make it very basic, say your diet is made up of 2 foods, and you currently consume 4 grams of food X and 5 grams of food Y per day. Now you want to find a diet that meets a certain nutritional and environmental requirement. Optimeal then finds all combinations of these foods that meets these requirements, shown by this pink bubble in this example. Any amount of these 2 foods in this pink bubble meets the requirements that you place. So you could have as little as 5 grams and a half or 5.5 grams of food X and 9.5 grams of food Y, or 4.5 grams of food Y and 9 grams of food X to meet these requirements. Then what Optimeal does is it looks for the shortest distance between the starting diet and the one of these combinations, and identifies the closest point as the optimized diet. This can be seen as the most similar diet compared to the starting diet. How it searches for the closest diet depends on the objective function. In this example, the circle represents a quadratic function. Optimeal uses either linear or quadratic programming for the optimization. The goal of the optimization is to comply with all the constraints using the least amount of penalties, or in other words, staying as close as possible to the current diet. Using linear programming, a specific amount of changes comes with a certain amount of penalties. But with quadratic programming, the penalty increases with the amount of changes per product. A penalty is attributed for every change made to the diet, and the goal of the optimization is to minimize the amount of penalties. Quadratic programming spreads the changes in more products than linear programming, making the result of quadratic programming less extreme and more realistic than the results of linear programming. This graph might help you grasp the possibilities of using optimization for the purpose of sustainable diets. The y-axis is the average environmental impact, which is a weighted score for greenhouse gas emissions, land use, and fossil energy use. The x-axis is about the difficulty of adopting the diet, which is defined by the distance from the current diet. The current diet is on the y-axis and has an environmental impact of a bit more than 0.4 points, but it doesn't comply to all the nutritional constraints. The closest healthy diet does comply to all the nutritional constraints and is quite easy to adopt, and it has a similar environmental impact. Then you have the healthy pescatarian and lacto-ovo-vegetarian diets that have a lower environmental impact but are slightly more difficult to adopt. The healthy vegan diet is all the way on the right. It has a 30% lower environmental impact compared to the current diet, but it is more difficult for most people to adopt. It is possible to achieve the same reduction in environmental impact without adopting a vegan diet. This diet is closer to the current diet and is much easier to adopt. The most optimal diet might not be a predefined diet like vegan or pescatarian. There are many possibilities when it comes to healthy and sustainable diets. To summarize, the starting point of the optimization is the current diet. The optimization makes changes to the diet and stays within the boundaries for all nutritional and environmental properties, while staying as close to the current diet as possible. The consumption of products in the diet is shifted to be able to fulfill all the requirements for meeting a healthy and sustainable diet, which results in an optimized diet that is both healthy and sustainable. For more information, you can visit www.optimeal.nl to learn more about Optimeal. and go to www.tools.blancconsultants.nl/tool/optimize_diet to access a freely available interactive tool to create a healthy and sustainable diet today. Thank you very much for watching this knowledge clip about mathematical optimization of diets. I hope you enjoyed this knowledge clip and have a better idea of the challenges and opportunities involved in designing a healthy and sustainable diet.